All right, let's factor together. In number one, and if you need to fast forward, you can fast forward, press pause, do it first, and then look at the answers. What two numbers multiply to negative 28 and add to negative 3? So we find the numbers, we start with the letter, minus 7, start with the letter, plus 4, and it's done. Number two, let's see if we get focused in here. Again, two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to negative 8. So those numbers multiply to 15, they add to negative 8. Start with the letter, minus 3. Start with the letter, minus 5. Order doesn't matter. Number 3, again, two numbers that multiply to negative 36 and add to 5. So 9 times negative 4 and add them to 5. Again, you should be doing this first, then pressing play. So pause it, see if you can do number 4. Then you press play to see if you did it right. So negative 2 and negative 1. So it's a minus 2 and a plus 1 that fits. Again, press pause and try number 5. See if you did it correctly. So 90 and negative 19. So the two numbers are negative 10 and negative 9. Go ahead, number 6, pause it, try first. It's negative 72. The number you don't see in the middle there is 1. So what are the two numbers? Press pause and really think through your times tables. It's 9 and negative 8. Number 7 is different. In number 7, we're going to factor out a greatest common factor. So the largest number that goes into both evenly is negative 12. And they both have at least an x. So negative 12x. And then we divide to see what's left over. 108 divided by 12 is 9. And you can always multiply to see if it equals what it was before, to double check to make sure you did it right. Number 8, the biggest number that goes into both evenly is, doesn't 36 go into it evenly? Does 36 go into 144 evenly? It does. All right, so factor out a negative 36 and a b, and you're left with b minus 4. Just double check it. Turn the page. Man, those numbers are huge, but I think 16 goes into everything evenly. So I think you can factor out a 16. So I'm double checking here. Can you factor out a 16? No. Can you factor out an 8? No. So only 2 or 4? So if you factored out a 4, you'd have 4a squared plus 41 and then 72. $72 times 4 is, what is that, 288? And then we need to find two numbers that multiply to 288. And add to 41. So press pause, see if you can find those numbers. There should be an A. So 32 and 9. Those two numbers multiply to 288 and add to 41. That's tough. And then divide by 4, and you get a plus 32 divided by 4 is 8. This one you slide the denominator in front and you get 4a plus 9. And that's it. That was a tough one. Number 10, not as tough. Factor out a 10 and an n, and that's it. All right, see if you can try number 11. So for this, we're going to take the first number times the last number, and then negative 5 goes underneath. So what two numbers multiply and add? To find those two numbers, Then we're going to write down r minus 9 and r plus 4. We're going to divide by 6. Now, in order to slide the denominator in front, this has to be in lowest terms. So what's 9 over 6 in lowest terms? Divide by 3. And this one we're going to divide by 2, top and bottom. Now we can slide the denominator in front. So one factor is 2r take away 3, and the other factor, slide the 3 in front, is 3r plus 2. All right, number 12. 9 times 5 and negative 18. So two numbers that multiply to 45 and add to negative 18. So both numbers are going to be negative. So that's going to be negative 15 and negative 3. They multiply to 45 and they add to negative 18. So we have p take away 15, p take away 3, and then divide both by 9. And again, we need to reduce it down. So divide by 3, and you get 5 over 3. Divide by 3, and you get 1 over 3. Now slide it in front, and you have it. Practice, right? You can do this. Number 13. So again, 9 times 7 and negative 24. What two numbers fit there? So those two numbers are going to be negative 21 and negative 3. They multiply to 63 and add to negative 24. So I have r take away 21. I got r take away 3. Now divide by 9. Again, we have to reduce it down. So divide by 3 and divide by 3. And I get 3r take away 7. It's a 7. And 3r take away 1. That's a 7. And it's done. Don't even do this one. Cross it out. Numbers are too big. 15. We can do this. 4 times negative 21 and negative 8. So two numbers that multiply to 84 and subtract to 8. Let's see. I know. Press pause. Maybe you can help me out. What are the two numbers? I think it's going to be 12. Is it going to be 12? It's not 12 and 7. All right, let me factor this out as you keep thinking it through. What are the two numbers that match? You probably know when you're shouting at the video saying, I know those two numbers that multiply. So, did you say 14 and 6? Did you say that out loud? And you're saying, man, I know it. It's negative 14 and 6. They multiply to 84 and they add to negative 8. Great job. So one is going to be negative 14 and the other is going to be positive 6. And then divide by 4, and then you have to reduce the fractions down. So divide by 2 and divide by 2. Now you can slide the denominator in front and get your answer. All right, try number, cross this one out too. So if I cross it out, say it's okay. It's done. You don't have to do that. And just these numbers are large. Cross out number 17, number 18. Just do the ones I'm doing. So for this one, 10 times 9 and 21. So I need two numbers that multiply to 90 and add to 21. Those two I do know. That's 15 times 6. Again, try as much as you can on your own. And then we're going to divide. So divide by 10. You are going to have to reduce it down again. So divide by 5 first. That's 3 over 2. Divide by 2 first. That's 3 over 5. Now slide the denominator in front, and you have your answer. Awesome. Next page. Again, we're going to take the first number times the last number. That's 40 and 22. And we're thinking of what two numbers multiply to 40 and add to 22. That's 20 excuse me, and 2. So we go positive 20 and positive 2. Then divide by 8, and we're going to have to reduce it down. So divide by 4, and you get 5 over 4. No, 5 over 2. Divide by 2, and you get 1 over 4. Now you can slide it in front. That's 2k plus 5 and 4k plus 1. And you have your two factors. Number 20, 8 times negative 9. 72, negative, and 6. What two numbers match here? So it's going to be 12 and negative 6. Again, try it first. So press pause until it's done, then press play. We're going to divide by 8, and we're going to reduce it down. So divide both top and bottom by 4. Oops. Yeah, I got that. 3 over 2. Divide by 2, top and bottom. And then slide the denominator in front, and you have your answer. Number 21. Again, that's negative 30 and 7. Find the two numbers that match. That's r plus 10 and r take away 3. Divide by 10. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. And this is a fraction in lowest terms. So just slide it in front and you get 10r take away 3. And it's done. Don't do 22. Cross that out. Now for 23, this is called a difference of squares. So you have two terms and you are subtracting. So when there are two terms and you're subtracting, you're going to square root each one. So square root of k squared and the square root of 36. And that means one factor is going to be adding and one factor is going to be subtracting. This is a simple trinomial, two numbers that multiply to 18 or 81 and add to 18. Now when the factor repeats, see how it's the same number? We write it once and we square it. So we don't put them beside each other, we write it once and square it. Here for 25, we're going to factor out a 3 first. 3 goes into 72 24 times. And then find the two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 5. And that's it. So sometimes there's a number you can factor out in front to make it easier. Here, two numbers that multiply to negative 5 and add to negative 5. Ooh, that's going to be a tricky one. So only 5 times 1, that's never going to add there. This is not factorable. So I guess there's a situation where it could be that it's not factorable. So there are no two numbers here that multiply to negative 5 and add to negative 5 or subtract. If you can think of something, let me know. But I'm pretty sure that there's no numbers here, so we just write down that it's not factorable. Another word that we use here when it's not factorable is we say the word prime when something's not factorable. Number 27, we have 4 terms. So we're going to factor this by grouping. So we take out the first, look at the first 2 terms only, and we're going to divide out what they have in common. There you go. So what number goes into 4 and 2? And they both have at least 2m. So you factor out 2m squared. And then you divide. So 4 divided by 2 and subtract the exponents. 2 divided by 2. When you subtract the exponents, it's 0, so there's no m. So there's your answer. Here, look at the last 2 terms. The only thing they both have in common is 1. So we factor out a 1, and then they both share the same factor. So 2m plus 1, and what's left over is what's in front of each parentheses. So the second factor is 2m squared plus 1. All right, let's try that skill again. This is factoring by grouping. Look at the first 2 terms and factor out what they have in common. Divide, and then do the same for the last 2 terms. What do they have in common? And then divide to see what's left. And then these have to match for it to be factorable. So they both share m plus 3. And what's in front of the parentheses is the second factor. All right, we're almost there. 29. Look at the first 2 and factor out what they have in common. Look at the last 2, and again, you should press pause and try it if you know what you're doing. Look at the last 2. What do they have in common? What's the largest number that goes into both? 8. Again, these have to match. So they both share 3k take away 4, and what's left after you factor that out is 7k squared plus 8. Again, we're going to common factor and then divide. That's not right. 6. This one's 7. Again, we're going to look at what they have in common. That's going to be a 3. And then divide. Notice these match, so that's one of the factors. And then what's in front of each parentheses is the second factor. Again, look at the first two, take out what they both have in common, and then divide. Look at the last two and see what they have in common. So we're going to factor out a negative 4 and be left with 2x minus, or a positive 4, and be left with 2x minus 3. And so one factor is 2x minus 3, and the other factor is 3x plus 4. All right, one last one like this. Press pause and try it first. Factor out a 2 and a b squared, and then divide. Factor out a negative 3 and divide. So they share b plus 8, and then what's in front of each parentheses is the second factor. All right, number 33 on. These are all like a basic trinomial for the most part, except the exponents are different. So we're still going to go negative 56 and 1. So the two numbers are 8 and negative 7. So when I go 8 and negative 7, the only thing I need to be aware of is the exponents need to match. So for this to work, both exponents have to be squared, so that when you multiply, it's 4, and when you add it, it's x squared. So we just have to adjust the exponent, but the rest of the math is the same. Same thing here. So we have negative 12 and negative 1. We find the numbers, and all we have to do is adjust the exponent. So this exponent needs to be squared, so that when you multiply, it matches, and when you add it, it matches. Let's try that again. So again, negative 8 and negative 7. So we find the two numbers that work. Oops, negative 8 and positive 1. And then make sure the exponents work. So we have x squared minus 8 and x squared plus 1. Here we're going to factor out a 4. So we have a to the 4 minus 10, a squared, that's 16. So if there's a common factor to factor out, that makes it a lot easier. So two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to negative 10, and make sure the exponents work and match. So that's a squared and a squared. And then it's completely factored. All right, we're almost there. Two more left. This one's going to require, well, first of all, factor out a 2. Do that first, make it easier. Then what's left over, I have negative 3 and negative 2. So those two numbers are negative 3 and 1. Make sure the exponents work. So it's going to be u squared minus 3 and u squared plus 1. Done. All right, last one. And then you did your factoring. Great job. Two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 4. Now this repeats. So we are going to use m squared plus 2, and it repeats. So we're going to write it, instead of m squared plus 2m squared, we're going to write it once and square it, and you did it. I'm really proud of you that you watched the video. I hope you did it first and saw if the answers were in your factoring was correct. Until next time, Mr. G Math, over now.